Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more. This story goes back to when I was younger. That afternoon, Aunt arrived with numerous bags and boxes. I helped carry some to her room and the rest to mine. Despite regretting my agreement with her, I was determined to stick with it to avoid ridicule. Once Aunt settled in, she came to my room and asked, "Ready to begin, Casey?" Though disheartened, I accepted the delicate silk and lace chemise she offered and changed in the bathroom. Returning, I found Aunt had unpacked most of the bags. My bed was covered in lingerie, hosiery, corsets, and other feminine garments, while my closet held a line of gowns. Smiling, Aunt remarked, "You already look better, Casey. Let's finish your outfit." Before long, I found myself adorned in all the undergarments: corset, stockings, bloomers, corset cover, and petticoat, struggling for breath against the tight lacing. Aunt then selected a dress from the closet. It was a plain black silk, featuring a narrow skirt with a hint of a bustle at the back. The high choker collar was adorned with delicate white lace, complemented by long, slender sleeves with lace cuffs, and a snug fit around the waist and chest. With Aunt's assistance, I managed to slip into it, grappling with the mysteries of hooks, eyes, and snaps. It was undoubtedly the most intricate dress I had ever worn. Following the dress, came shoes, a wig, powder, rouge, and finally, a beautiful emerald ring and cameo brooch. Once dressed, Aunt urged me to observe myself, and once again, I was taken aback by my feminine appearance. I had to concede that the severe black dress wasn't as flattering as the ones I had worn previously. Descending the stairs, I was presented to Mother and Olivia. They showered me with praise, though Mother did remark that she found the dress a bit too stern for my age. As before, it took some time to adjust to my attire, but the afternoon passed swiftly, and before I knew it, bedtime had arrived. Both Mother and Aunt joined me in my room and amidst their laughter and my embarrassment, helped me undress. Left only in my chemise, Aunt retrieved a blue wool wrapper and a pair of high-heeled mules from the closet. Assisting me into them, she handed me a frilly flowered muslin nightgown, insisting I change into it. Despite my protests about nightgowns not being part of the deal, I yielded, spending the remainder of the week in the delicate gown. The following morning, Aunt roused me and guided me through the process of dressing, though she believed I should manage it on my own. Lacing the corset proved physically challenging, but the rest, apart from styling my hair, was straightforward. Taming my hair was a lengthy and arduous task, yet Aunt patiently offered her guidance. Eventually, I was ready for breakfast, clad in a simple blue and white cotton morning dress. Upon our descent, Mother praised my appearance but teased us for being slow. She chuckled heartily when I explained that Aunt had insisted I dress myself. Later that afternoon, Mother and Aunt embarked on a shopping trip, urging me to join them, but I adamantly declined. Left to my own devices, I spent some time reading before growing bored and wandering around the house, eventually finding myself in my room. There, I examined the dresses hanging in the closet for the first time, realizing there were more than I could wear in a week. Despite the embarrassment, a faint thrill of excitement coursed through me. Recognizing that my morning attire wouldn't suffice for dinner, I opted for a plain dark green satin frock and changed into it. I swapped to more formal shoes and attempted to restyle my hair as best I could. Adorning myself with the emerald ring, I surveyed my reflection with satisfaction before heading downstairs for the rest of the afternoon. Mother and Aunt returned just in time for dinner, laden with bags and parcels. Both approved of my choice of gown and hairstyle, leaving me feeling proud of having accomplished this on my own. The following morning, I found myself downstairs in my cotton house frock before the others awoke. Upon their appearance, I underwent the usual scrutiny, receiving approval except for my hair, which they deemed imperfectly arranged but satisfactory for a beginner. After breakfast, Aunt informed me that she had purchased fabric for a suit the previous day and asked if I would like to assist her in making it. Eager to fill the idle hours, I agreed. Accompanying her to the sewing room, She unveiled the bundle of fabric for my inspection, asking, "Do you think this will make a pretty suit?" It was a rather weighty reddish-orange velvet. I concurred with her assessment, agreeing it would indeed yield a handsome garment. She then retrieved the pattern and began working, with me assisting to the best of my ability. Over the next few days, I alternated between seamstress and dress form. Surprisingly, I found myself developing considerable skill with needle and thread and even began to enjoy the process more and more as we progressed. That day, we worked until mid-afternoon, at which point I changed into a beige wool dress with a simple design featuring a high neckline, long sleeves, and contrasting color embroidery trim. After dinner, we took a stroll. I draped a long plain black coat over my dress and adorned myself with a black hat, purse, and gloves. Despite my nerves, the walk passed without incident, and I returned home feeling quite pleased with myself. By then, I had grown quite accustomed to my attire and felt comfortable wearing it. Only occasionally did the corset cause discomfort, and at times, I even found myself enjoying the sensation of my skirts and the elegance of my apparel. On the third morning, I dressed in a floral print house gown. Shortly after breakfast, Aunt and I resumed our dressmaking endeavors. Later in the afternoon, I changed into the dark blue skirt and frilly blouse that Aunt had initially selected when dressing me as a woman. Our work progressed well, with the skirt completed and the jacket taking shape. Aunt's meticulous craftsmanship ensured excellent cut and quality. Throughout the day, Mother and Aunt alternately teased and challenged me to accompany them to the theatre that evening. Finally, I accepted the challenge, marking my first public appearance as a woman. After dinner, we donned our hats and coats and made our way to the car line. As the brightly lit car stopped for us, panic gripped me, and they practically had to carry me inside. Once seated, I nervously surveyed the other passengers, relieved to find they paid little attention to me. The evening unfolded much the same way. Though frightened, my fears were unfounded as nothing untoward occurred. I breathed a sigh of relief upon safely returning home. Once my nerves settled, a sense of exhilaration washed over me, and for the first time, I realized I was beginning to relish my newfound role. I felt confident in feminine attire, and the softness, delicacy, and variety of the clothing appealed to me more and more. The following day mirrored the previous ones, spent in a cotton house frock assisting with sewing. That afternoon, I changed into the blue silk gown I had worn on a prior occasion. By noon the next day, the suit was nearly complete, lacking only finishing touches like buttons, which Aunt had yet to purchase. That afternoon, she prepared to head downtown for this essential shopping. With Mother occupied elsewhere, Aunt requested my company. Though my confidence had been bolstered by the theatre outing, the prospect of a daytime excursion still unnerved me. After much persuasion, I agreed, and we set off. I wore a simple light brown suit, its long open jacket adorned with flaring skirts trimmed with gold braid. The plain skirt was paired with a ruffled white silk blouse with a high neckline. Completing the ensemble were a brown hat with a heavy veil, brown purse and gloves, and a gold bracelet. Initially, I was fraught with nerves, but as we reached downtown and entered the stores, I began to relax. The saleswomen were courteous and seemed unperturbed by my presence. One even flattered me, much to Aunt's amusement, by remarking, "My dear, you wear your clothes beautifully." Aunt shopped diligently, acquiring the necessary items to complete the suit and then indulging in additional purchases. Among them was a sheer silk blouse with lace ruffles, a dainty silk and lace chemise, bloomers, petticoat, hose, a quality corset, a salmon-colored velvet hat with matching accessories, and a pair of reddish-brown high-heeled shoes. I stayed by her side throughout the excursion, occasionally feeling embarrassed as the clerks displayed the delicate garments to both Aunt and me. Nonetheless, I thoroughly enjoyed the afternoon, offering input on the items under consideration. I was astounded by the extent of her purchases, considering she already had an ample wardrobe. When I asked about it, she simply replied that she wanted an entirely new ensemble to complement the suit. Upon returning home, I felt both weary and exhilarated, pleased with my successful masquerade. The sight of all the beautiful garments had broadened my perspective on the possibilities available to women when selecting clothes, further igniting my growing interest in feminine pursuits. The following day, the suit was completed, and it was truly exquisite. The high-quality material and impeccable craftsmanship resulted in a remarkably stylish garment. At lunch, Mother and Aunt decided to make a special occasion of our dinner, given that it was Saturday. Around 5 o'clock, they sent me upstairs to bathe. Upon my return to my room, clad in my blue wrapper, Aunt was arranging clothes on my bed. She first handed me an unusual chemise, lacking shoulder straps but featuring elastic to hold it up. Next came the corset, delicate and more tightly cinched than those I had worn previously. Aunt struggled to lace it tightly, but the result was a wonderfully flattering figure. Following the corset, came hose, bloomers, and a shoulder-strapless petticoat. Aunt then assisted me into the evening gown, a heavy cream-colored satin adorned with bands of black lace on the skirt and bodice. The bodice, without shoulder straps, featured lace that extended around the arms, resembling off-the-shoulder sleeves reminiscent of pre-Civil War gowns. Aunt presented black silk pumps, a departure from the high-button shoes I had been wearing. Patiently, she arranged my hair, placing it in a lower knot on my neck than usual and adorning it with artificial white flowers. After powdering my face, neck, arms, and back, she adorned me with a string of pearls, 2 rings, and a bracelet. Voila! You're ready for the party. Go and take a look at yourself, she declared. As I descended the stairs to view myself in the hall mirror, Aunt called me back and insisted I put on a pair of extremely long white kid gloves, reaching above my elbows and opening at the wrist. She directed me to wear the bracelet over the glove and handed me a black lace fan before retreating to dress herself. Standing before the mirror, I was astonished by my appearance. The full skirt, narrow waist, and bare shoulders gave me the likeness of a delicate flower. The low hairdo softened and narrowed my shoulders, while the creamy silk complemented my complexion beautifully. The finishing touches of the fan, gloves, and flowers in my hair enhanced the effect. Delighted, I chuckled to myself as I admired my reflection from every angle. As I stood there, Mother entered and exclaimed, "Oh Casey, you're lovely." She kissed me affectionately, adding, "My dear, you have no idea how pretty you are. You make me very proud, for few mothers have such lovely daughters." I expressed gratitude for the compliment, and then Aunt and Mother joined us, both adorned in evening gowns. We stood together, admiring our reflections, before entering for dinner, their praises still echoing in my ears. Despite the humor of dressing so formally for a hen party, we all enjoyed a delightful evening. Whenever possible, I stole away to the hall to catch another glimpse of myself. With each viewing, I grew more enamored with my appearance. When bedtime finally arrived, I reluctantly removed my delicate gown, genuinely regretting the end of the evening. The following morning, I welcomed the nearing conclusion of my week as a woman. While I had grown accustomed to and even grown fond of my feminine attire, I eagerly anticipated returning to my own clothes that afternoon. During breakfast, Mother and Aunt decided on a downtown luncheon followed by a matinee. I pleaded to switch back to my own clothes before we set out. However, Aunt reminded me of our agreement for a full week, which wouldn't expire until late afternoon. Reluctantly, I agreed and spent the morning in my cotton frock, reading and feeling sorry for myself. Around 11:30, Mother announced it was time to prepare, so we all ascended to our rooms. When I inquired about attire, Aunt assured me she would decide while I bathed. I shed my cotton frock and undergarments, donned the blue wrapper, and headed for the bath. Upon returning, Aunt presented me with a pale pink silk chemise adorned with intricate ecru lace, the same one she had purchased during our shopping excursion. It was so exquisite that I felt a strong desire to wear it, though I hesitated, feeling I shouldn't wear her newest items. I expressed this to Aunt, but she insisted, urging me to don the lovely garment. Without hesitation, I slipped into the delicate piece, feeling a thrill as it enveloped my body. Then came the corset, also new, crafted from flesh-colored satin adorned with rosettes of blue ribbon. The bloomers coordinated with the chemise, while the petticoat boasted heavy white silk with lace trimmings and ruffles along the bottom, occasionally peeking beneath my skirts. Once adorned in the lingerie, Aunt handed me the dainty ruffled silk blouse we had purchased, followed by the skirt for the orange velvet suit we had crafted that week. Once again, I voiced my protest at wearing her new items, but my concerns were dismissed, and soon I found myself buttoning up the new reddish-brown shoes as she styled my hair. After completing my hair, she applied powder to my face, adorned me with 2 rings and a bracelet, and fastened a silver brooch onto the ruffles at my throat. Then, I slipped into the jacket, and Aunt placed the matching hat atop my head. Once secured, she drew the veil over my face before presenting the matching purse and gloves. Enthralled by these exquisite new garments, I thanked her and expressed my love for them, but also voiced my concern about wearing them. "Aunt, I adore these clothes, but I feel hesitant wearing them. What if something were to happen to them?" "But Casey, you don't understand. They're not my things, they're yours," Aunt clarified. "Mine?" I gasped. "Why yes, Casey. Didn't you know that I got them as a present for you?" Aunt revealed. "Oh Aunt," I exclaimed, feeling strangely thrilled. "Thank you ever so much, but what will I do with them? I'm done wearing dresses this afternoon." "Oh, don't worry, Casey," she reassured with an enigmatic smile. "I imagine you'll find some use for them." Descending the stairs, I joined Mother, who awaited me. Seeing my smart appearance, she exclaimed with approval. Glancing at myself in the hall mirror, I concurred. The suit, with its lovely color and latest fashion, was exceedingly becoming, and I appeared as a smart and attractive young woman. Justifiably proud, I marveled at the fact that all the lovely things I wore were now mine. As we departed from the house, I felt nervous. Yet, the silken softness of my undergarments, the gentle tickling of lace, and the swish of my skirts reassured me, and I soon relaxed. Moreover, the thought of my smart attire and appearance began to fill me with pride, and soon I was bursting with confidence. We dined at the most fashionable eatery in town. Upon leaving, I received the ultimate compliment when I overheard one woman whisper to another, but that girl in the orange suit is pretty. I wonder who she is." Mother and Aunt teased me about it once we were out of earshot. After the matinee, we enjoyed a light supper before returning home. Before we arrived there, my week as a woman had come to an end. With plenty of time left that evening, I felt no inclination to change. My new clothes brought me such delight that I couldn't imagine ever wanting to be without them. As Aunt prepared to depart in the morning, we stayed up late. Just before retiring, she turned to me and asked, "Well, Casey, has the past week been as challenging as you anticipated?" Unable to admit the burgeoning feelings within me, I replied, "Oh, one can adapt to anything, Aunt." They both chuckled at my response, and Mother remarked, "Charlotte, I think is starting to enjoy playing the role of a woman and wearing women's clothing." "Oh no, I don't," I protested, but my blush betrayed me. Mother laughed again, saying, "He may try to deny it, Charlotte, but I know him too well. He's thrilled with the clothes you gave him, and I don't blame him one bit. They're lovely and so flattering. I'm proud to have such a beautiful daughter, because that's truly what he becomes when dressed as a girl like now. No one would mistake Casey over there in that lovely suit for anything but feminine. I've even begun to think in the past few days that nature may have made a mistake with Casey, a thought easily rectified by dressing him for his true role in life, that of a girl." Aunt agreed solemnly, "I concur, Agnes. Casey must indeed have a feminine heart, for otherwise, he couldn't portray one so convincingly. I've thoroughly enjoyed the past week with him. I sincerely hope he won't be stubborn and refuse to wear his new attire from time to time." "I'm sure he won't," said Mother, as I remained embarrassedly silent. Then, we all retired for the night. As I undressed, I lingered over each garment. By choice, I wore one of Aunt's gowns to bed. The following morning, I yearned to don my new finery. Realizing it would be too revealing, I reluctantly put on my own clothes, lamenting that our agreement hadn't been for a month instead of just a week. My own clothes felt foreign, especially the trousers. My skin, accustomed to silk, rebelled at their roughness. This sensation eventually faded, and by the time I reached the breakfast table, I felt more at ease. Neither mother nor aunt commented on my appearance. For the first few days after aunt's departure, everything went smoothly, except that whenever I caught sight of the velvet suit or the drawer full of lingerie, a tingling sensation ran down my spine. It wasn't that I longed to wear them so much as it was a sense of pride in ownership. Strangely, the fact that they belonged to me brought me disproportionate pleasure. On numerous occasions, mother encouraged me to wear them, but I consistently declined, fearing their potential ridicule. One afternoon, while mother and Olivia were out, I found myself wandering about the house and caught sight of the velvet suit. Instantly, an intense desire to put it on swept over me. The temptation to do so without being noticed proved too strong to resist. Within minutes, I was undressed and slipping into the chemise. Once fully attired, I adjusted the wig that aunt had provided to complement the ensemble and stood downstairs, admiring my reflection in the mirror. It was then that I realized my subconscious yearning to wear the clothes masked by a mere sense of ownership. A profound sense of satisfaction washed over me. The remainder of the afternoon passed delightfully. Though I didn't engage in any particular activity, the simple act of being dressed as a woman filled me with immeasurable happiness. Just before mother returned, I changed back into my own clothes. In response to her inquiries, I claimed to have spent the afternoon reading. However, that evening, I felt utterly miserable. The absence of my dresses weighed heavily on me, and I found it unbearable. Several times, mother questioned my restlessness. Finally, she remarked, "Casey, what's the matter with you? You've been getting more irritable and restless lately. You're not at all like you were last week." Though inwardly thrilled at the prospect, I outwardly dismissed her suggestion, ridiculing it openly. The next morning, I awoke early, lying in bed, attempting to muster the courage to wear my feminine attire. Yet, the fear of ridicule and exposure of my true thoughts held me back. Despite my self-reproach, my attempts were futile. The more I tried, the more despondent I became. When mother entered to wake me, I was in a foul mood, rudely dismissing her. She grew frustrated and exclaimed, "Now look here, Casey, I won't tolerate your unpleasant humor any longer. Get up and put on the clothes Charlotte gave you. Maybe that will improve your behavior." Though inwardly pleased by her outburst, I tried to conceal it and complied without uttering a word. My salmon-colored skirt and ruffled blouse were hardly appropriate for the time of day, but that seemed inconsequential. At least I had the opportunity to dress as I desired. Once fully dressed, I descended to breakfast. Upon seeing my demeanor, mother remarked, "You don't dislike those clothes, Casey. If you did, they wouldn't uplift your spirits as they do." I remained silent but happily seated myself and ate, enjoying Olivia's compliments throughout the meal. I wore the outfit all day, adding the jacket at dinner time. Throughout, my elevated mood prompted repeated comments from mother about my improved disposition. She vowed to adopt the same approach every time I became irritable. As a preventive measure, I maintained a cheerful demeanor the following day, avoiding conflict with mother, though I yearned for my other clothes. In the midst of the afternoon, aunt phoned and invited us for dinner. We accepted, and mother remarked, "Charlotte would be delighted if you wore your new clothes." I felt torn between apprehension and longing. Ultimately, desire prevailed, and when we departed for aunt's house, I wore my salmon suit. Upon seeing me, aunt greeted me with exuberance, embracing me and showering me with kisses, veil and all. Once indoors and relieved of my hat and gloves, she took both of my hands and expressed her delight, leaving me gratified that I had followed mother's suggestion. Just then, Martha appeared, subjecting me to her inspection. I swelled with pride at her compliments. We then settled down to enjoy a pleasant dinner and an evening's visit. Following that evening, I felt increasingly at ease wearing my feminine attire. Though I didn't always don them voluntarily, I complied whenever mother or aunt requested. As my initial resistance waned, their requests grew in frequency. Before long, scarcely a day passed without me wearing my feminine clothing at some point. One morning, as I assisted Mother around the house, clad in my frilly blouse and salmon skirt, she remarked, "Casey, we'll need to get you more dresses. That lovely suit will be ruined if you wear it for housework." I dismissed her concern, insisting it wouldn't harm the suit, and promptly forgot about the matter. In the days that followed, Mother and Aunt made several trips downtown without inviting me along. However, on the following Saturday, during our visit to Aunt's for dinner, I received a delightful surprise. After our meal, they led me into the parlor, where a sizable pile of packages awaited us. "Open them, Casey," Aunt instructed. Baffled but obedient, I selected a box and uncovered a beautiful black wide-brimmed hat adorned with feathers. Still puzzled, I questioned, "It's lovely, but why am I opening it?" They both chuckled, and Aunt replied, "Oh, Casey, you silly thing, those parcels are for you. Agnes and I thought you could use some more things. Now go ahead and open all of them." This news was tremendously exciting, and I eagerly delved into the pile of packages. In no time, I had them all open, revealing a marvelous array of clothing. Among them was a chic black silk suit with a long, bell-bottomed jacket and a lace-trimmed white blouse. Also included was a formal afternoon dress in a grayish-beige hue adorned with embroidery. For outdoor wear, there was a dark brown fur-trimmed coat paired with a narrow-brimmed hat. As per Mother's suggestion, there were 2 cotton house frocks for chores. Additionally, there were 2 complete sets of lingerie, not as delicate as what I was wearing but still quite elegant. Accompanying these were 2 lovely corsets and an abundance of hose. For footwear, there were high black shoes and beige pumps to match the new dress, along with 2 purses and matching gloves. In terms of jewelry, I received a string of pearls, a gold bracelet, a beautiful topaz ring, and a pair of gold earrings. The packages also contained various accessories such as veils, hat pins, delicate handkerchiefs, perfume, and powder. The generosity of these gifts left me overwhelmed. There was no longer any denying my fondness for feminine things. I effusively thanked Mother and Aunt, who seemed equally delighted. Eager to try on my new attire, I picked up the black and white suit and excused myself to go upstairs. Once in Aunt's room, I changed out of my salmon suit and into the new one. After adjusting my hair, I stood before the full-length mirror. What I saw pleased me greatly. The exceedingly feminine suit was exceptionally flattering. After admiring myself for a brief moment, I descended the stairs, pausing in the hall to gather my composure before entering the room with grandeur. As I swept in, Mother and Aunt watched with delight. I stopped before them and gracefully twirled as if on a fashion runway. Their enthusiastic reactions filled me with joy. For the next few minutes, I basked in the spotlight. They complimented my appearance and praised their own excellent taste in selecting such a flattering ensemble. Soon, attention turned to the jewelry, and in no time, I adorned myself with the pearls, bracelet, and ring. The earrings, however, required pierced ears. Though initially hesitant, I secretly resolved to have it done at the earliest opportunity. When it was time to leave, I gathered up as many of the new items as I could carry. With my wide-brimmed hat perched atop my head and my new coat draped over my arm, we departed, Mother shouldering more of the new acquisitions. It took me a while to retire for the night once we arrived home, as I lovingly inspected each new piece before stowing it away. The following morning, I rose early and decided to don my new attire, regardless of any comments Mother might make about it being my own choice. I started with the new lingerie, followed by the corset, hose, and petticoat. Next, I slipped into a blue cotton house frock and donned the new black shoes. Just as I finished pinning up my hair, Mother entered to wake me. Upon finding me already dressed, she was delighted. After exchanging a few words about my new clothing, she returned to her room to dress herself, while I made my way downstairs. Olivia was taken aback to see me dressed so elegantly and inquired about the origin of the new dress. I recounted the gifts I had received and began describing the new dresses in response to her curiosity. After some time, Mother joined us,
and to my surprise, I realized I had been chatting with Olivia like any other woman. Despite the peculiarity of my situation, I had engaged in conversations about corsets, lingerie, and various feminine topics without feeling any embarrassment or awkwardness. Even more unexpectedly, neither Mother nor Olivia seemed to perceive anything unusual about the situation. Around 10 o'clock, Mother suggested that we attend church. I agreed and asked her what I should wear. After a moment of thought, she responded, "I believe your new black silk suit would be most suitable." Taken aback, I questioned, "You think I should wear a dress, Mother? Someone might recognize me." She exclaimed, "Oh, I completely forgot you were dressed as a man." Then, decisively, she added, "I'm sure you wouldn't be recognized, but it's up to you." Though her words seemed innocuous, I sensed a mischievous glint in her eye. Feeling conflicted, I retreated upstairs and contemplated my situation in front of the mirror. Eventually, I confronted myself. If you truly enjoy dressing as a woman and wish to continue, you must fully commit or abandon it altogether. So, what will it be? As I pondered, I looked at my reflection and saw, perhaps for the first time, a striking, elegant, and lively young woman, devoid of any remnants of my former nondescript masculine identity. In that moment, I made my decision. Shedding my house frock, I donned the silk suit, adjusted my hair, applied powder to my nose, and adorned myself with jewelry. Descending the stairs, I donned my new black hat and arranged the veil once it was securely pinned. With gloves on and purse in hand, I informed Mother that it was time to leave. She cast an approving glance my way as she rose, yet made no comment on my choice, and soon we were on our way to church. During church, we encountered several of Mother's and my acquaintances. Mother introduced me to them as her niece, Casey, a name reserved for private use within our family. Surprisingly, no one questioned this designation or found it peculiar. Following the service, I found myself engaged in casual conversation on the church steps, occasionally noticing approving looks from some of the men present. Upon returning home, we entered the living room where Mother embraced me tightly, tears streaming down her face. I was bewildered until she exclaimed between sobs, "Oh Casey, you were absolutely splendid. I'm so relieved you made the decision you did, it has transformed you completely." Her keen intuition had detected my resolve and observed its tangible impact on my demeanor. No longer did I shrink or attempt to conceal myself. Now, I moved with regal confidence, proud of my appearance, my elegant attire, and my newfound ability to embrace them. "But why are you crying, Mother?" I asked, attempting to comfort her. "I can't help it," she sobbed, "I'm just so overwhelmed with happiness." Surprisingly, I found myself shedding tears as well, a reaction I hadn't anticipated. Finally, we reached a mutual understanding and spent much of the afternoon discussing my journey into femininity. I openly confessed my growing desire while acknowledging the fear of ridicule that had plagued me since Aunt first dressed me in women's clothes. Mother expressed her fondness for me in a feminine role and assured me of her unconditional support for my decision to wear dresses whenever I pleased. We agreed that I would be free to pursue my preferences in this matter without fear of mockery or criticism. The next morning, I donned my blue house frock and assisted Mother with household chores. During lunch, she proposed a shopping outing, and I eagerly accepted. I wore my brown fur-trimmed hat with a veil and beneath my coat, the newly acquired embroidery-trimmed beige gown. Our first stop, as Mother explained, was to purchase some items I needed. Our selections included several delicate silk and lace nightgowns, a feather-trimmed negligée in blue velvet, and a pair of mules. Mother consulted me extensively during the shopping, so much so that the choices felt like my own. I was thrilled at the idea of wearing these new additions and pleased that Mother trusted my judgment in selecting feminine undergarments. Afterward, we attended to some incidental shopping and then, on Mother's suggestion, visited a doctor's office where I had my ears pierced. To my relief, the procedure was surprisingly painless. Remarkably, not even the doctor detected anything unusual about me. That evening, after getting undressed, I adorned myself in the loveliest of the new gowns, a pale blue satin creation trimmed with intricately handcrafted lace. I then donned the negligee, slipped into the mules, and removed the wig, allowing my hair to cascade down around my shoulders. I sought Mother's opinion, and she was delighted. After kissing me, she remarked, "Casey, you look absolutely charming. Any man would be smitten with you if he could see you like this." Surprisingly, her comment didn't embarrass me as it might have just days before. I was gradually adopting a more feminine perspective and approach to life. We chatted amiably while she tended to her hair, and then I retired to bed, enjoying a restful sleep in my delicate gown. For the remainder of the week, I continued to wear feminine attire. By Friday, when we attended the theatre with Charlotte, my ears had healed sufficiently to wear my new earrings. During intermissions, I was introduced to acquaintances I already knew, and I felt a sense of pride when I received compliments on my beige gown. Each encounter was exhilarating, and with each passing inspection, my confidence grew. For nearly another week, I remained in dresses. Then, one morning, I decided to revert to my own clothes. They felt uncomfortably coarse and unfamiliar. Surprisingly, I even found myself missing my corset. True to her word, Mother didn't comment on my change of attire. However, Olivia and later Charlotte both expressed their disapproval unequivocally. When Charlotte was invited to stay for dinner, she refused unless I changed back into feminine clothing, so I relented. While I was tightening my corset, Charlotte knocked on the door and offered to help. I gladly accepted her assistance, knowing how challenging it was to lace myself tightly enough. With her skilled hands, she quickly cinched me in. As I donned my petticoat and the black and white silk suit, she took up the wig and began combing it out. As I sat before her, she carefully brushed my hair back to prevent it from bulking up too much under the snug-fitting wig. In those days, we wore our hair long, and mine had grown even longer since I started embracing my feminine persona. I mentioned that I needed a haircut as it was becoming cumbersome and uncomfortable under the wig. Charlotte asked me to postpone it for a few days as she had a plan in mind, though she kept it a secret when I inquired. The next time we visited Charlotte, I opted for my old favorite and most flattering ensemble, the salmon suit. After we had settled in, Charlotte led me upstairs. Seating me at the dressing table, she gently removed my wig. I couldn't help but ask, did I do such a terrible job of putting it on? "No, Casey," Charlotte reassured me, "it's simply not necessary for you to wear it anymore. Your own hair will be long enough with the help of these." She held up 2 hairpieces for my inspection. First, she divided my hair from ear to ear and combed the front section forward. Then, she secured the switches into this section and brushed them back and down, blending them with my natural hair. After creating a long roll across the nape of my neck, she fashioned the front section into a stylish pompadour. Once she was finished, Charlotte held up a mirror for me to see. It looked truly elegant. The sleek, contemporary style was not only flattering but also much more comfortable than the bulky wig. "It looks wonderful, Charlotte, but how will I manage to recreate it after I get a haircut?" "Oh, you mustn't do that," she exclaimed. "But I can't go on looking like this," I protested. "Why, I think it suits you, Casey." "Yes, but what about my other clothes?" "Forget about them, Casey. After I've gone to all the trouble of getting these switches for you, you can't ruin their purpose by getting a haircut just so you can wear your old pants." With that, I dropped the subject and went downstairs with her. When Mother saw my new hairstyle, she was very complimentary. "Now you won't have to worry about being caught with a wig, Casey. Most women wear switches, so it won't matter if they are noticed." Until that evening, I hadn't realized how uncomfortable my wig had been. I was pleasantly surprised by the cool comfort of this new hair arrangement. I resolved to get a haircut the next day, but when morning came, the sight of the switches on my bureau tempted me to experiment with arranging them myself. Before long, I was busy trying out the new hairdo. Day after day, I planned to get a haircut, but the idea of having a new hairstyle kept me putting it off. Additionally, wearing nothing but feminine clothing for over a month diminished my motivation. During that time, I received a new dress, the classic black silk gown of the era, featuring mutton chop sleeves, a high neckline, and a draped back reminiscent of a bustle. I also convinced Charlotte to part with the blue silk dress with lace trim that I had initially worn. With these new additions to my wardrobe, I had a versatile selection that allowed me to dress appropriately for almost any occasion. One afternoon, I gathered my courage and dressed in my black gown to go shopping by myself. Making my first purchase required a lot of determination, but once I overcame that obstacle, I found myself on a spree. Returning home laden with bags, I surprised and pleased Mother when I showed her my new acquisitions: a beautiful pink silk chemise, hosiery, a new purse, gloves, and a veil. The pivotal day arrived, marking a true turning point in my life. Determined to finally get the haircut I had neglected for so long, I waited until Mother was out. Then, I changed into my completely unfamiliar masculine attire. It felt almost as strange as when I first wore dresses. It took some time to reacquaint myself with moving around the house. The skirts, corsets, and high-heeled shoes had drastically altered my gait. I had to consciously stride instead of taking my usual quick, short, feminine steps. Eventually, I felt I could pass as male. I retrieved my dusty hat from the closet and placed it on my head. Initially, it seemed too small, but then I remembered my hair and glanced at myself in the hall mirror. From a masculine perspective, I looked absurd. My hair was far too long for a boy. The thought of the barber's likely reaction was so humiliating that I hastily retreated upstairs and back into the comfort of petticoats. Upon Mother's return home, I asked her to cut my hair, but she adamantly refused. Furious with her, I vowed to go out and get it done the next day. Like many of my resolutions, however, I never followed through. A week or so later, returning from a shopping expedition, I discovered that all my masculine clothing had been relocated to the attic to make space for my expanding feminine wardrobe. During that week, Aunt had gifted me a lovely rose lace evening gown with a black velvet cloak lined with rose satin. Additionally, Mother had bestowed upon me a fine seal coat. I was overjoyed with these new clothes, but while I immediately wore the coat, I had to wait for an opportunity to don the gown. Finally, the night arrived, and we set off to the theatre. The gown left my shoulders and arms bare but had a neckline high enough to conceal my deceptive padding. Paired with a new set of gold and coral earrings, I styled my hair lower on my neck than usual. I presented a striking figure, eliciting gasps from both Mother and Aunt when they first saw me. At the theatre, I basked in the glow of numerous approving glances, swelling with pride. As winter passed swiftly, I found myself immersed in preparations for my summer wardrobe. Any lingering desire to return to a masculine life vanished at Christmas, when I was lavished with clothes and delicate undergarments. I became increasingly fashion-conscious. With Aunt's guidance, I cultivated a refined taste, so with the abundance of gifts and my growing number of purchases, I transformed into a very stylish young woman. By spring, my hair had grown so long that I could manage with only one hairpiece, and within a year, I abandoned them entirely. During the summer, we embarked on a trip and were so impressed by what would soon become one of San Diego's trendiest towns that we decided to relocate there. As we packed, I severed all ties with my past by giving away all the remaining masculine attire I had. Upon arriving at our new home, we procured a spacious house for the three of us and seamlessly integrated into the town's social scene. Initially, adjusting to meeting men from a feminine perspective presented challenges, but through reflection and guidance, I swiftly grew comfortable in various situations. In fact, I became quite popular and received attention from several young men. While this attention was enjoyable, I had to consistently rebuff any romantic advances. Initially, my approach seemed to heighten their interest. However, once they realized it was genuine, they treated me as a trusted friend, which suited me perfectly. I also cultivated many female friendships and became adept at discussing intimate feminine topics with ease. About a year after our arrival, Charlotte expressed frustration at the lack of nice undergarments in the local shops and mused about starting our own boutique. Initially, the idea didn't strike me as significant, But over time, it captivated both of us. Before long, we were fully immersed in plans to launch a high-end specialty shop. Despite skepticism from friends, we pressed on with determination. While our initial lack of business experience posed challenges, we eventually found success. Starting with lingerie, hosiery, handkerchiefs, and veils, we gradually expanded our offerings to include corsets, hats, and eventually, a full range of women's apparel. As the business flourished, I refined my taste, eventually surpassing Charlotte. I relished our semi-annual shopping trips to the East, often finding it hard to resist keeping many of the exquisite items for myself. Consequently, I became the best-dressed woman in town, and my appetite for fashionable garments only grew with time. Now in middle age, I exude chicness and contentment. The thought of reverting to men's clothing is repulsive to me, as I am entirely fulfilled in my feminine identity and desire nothing more.